We all know Steve Jobs built Apple, Elon Musk built Tesla, and Mark Zuckerberg built Facebook. Well, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, and Sam Walton built none of them, and yet they became billionaires. All of these three missed the major tech innovations. No Google, no Amazon, no Microsoft. Because sometimes it's not about inventing the future. Sometimes it's about doing things that people simply need. Sometimes it's about boring businesses. All three billionaires have one thing in common. They are extremely humble, which is an important signal they can swallow their pride. And that allows them to bet on businesses most people ignore. Because if your ego doesn't get in the way, you can make billions with boring businesses. Watch this whole video and see how people make billions when they find, invest in, or grow these boring businesses, and how you can do it too with a $100 million blueprint, even if you have just $0 to start. If you haven't ever considered a boring business to be a thing, the Chinese Socktown story will change your mind. Did you know that one small town in China produces a third of the world's socks? Billions of them every year. So statistically speaking, one of these 3 socks was made in a single town in China. And you won't see their founders on the cover of Forbes or TED Talks, yet Sock City pumps out billions in revenue, quietly, consistently, and predictably. The town known as Sock City started small and has grown into a major economic player. This focus has quietly built significant wealth for locals, showing how ordinary products can lead to extraordinary opportunities if you only focus on one essential product. Socks. 8 billion pairs of socks a year. They've mastered one of the essential elements of the exponential growth, which is the economies of scale. There are currently 100,000 workers in the tank who could make enough socks for the entire planet. That figure is mind-blowing, and yet the business is so boring that you've probably never heard of the Sock City. There is a reason I'm telling you this story. Ask yourself really what's stopping you from doing something as simple as socks with something equally boring or equally in demand. And I know part of the answer. First, what's stopping most people is that they don't understand what boring business really is. They didn't really spend time appreciating the true nature of this type of a business. So boring businesses is not sexy, but essential, like socks. Consider things like moving furniture, cleaning carpets, and painting parking lot lines, toilets, or something as simple as paper napkins. They all have one thing in common. It's something that people need, no matter what's trending on social media. Boring business doesn't mean pointless, but predictable. Think relatable, essential, and completely unsexy. It's the type of a business that you never brag about at a party, but it's the same business that pays for the party. When I say trash collection, fire inspections, pest controls, and grease trap cleaning, at no point someone is going to be asking you, wow, what is that? When someone says they do trash collection, everyone will be like, okay, nice. And that's the end of the conversation. There is no hype or feeling, no app, no virality. Just real problems and solutions for the people with the actual money that must be spent. Because these businesses aren't driven by trends, they're driven by the need, and that's exactly why they work. Like the U-Haul company, that was just one guy who started renting trucks in 1945, and today it's a $1 billion business. Or ChemDry, which turns carpet cleaning into a $500 million franchise. We will get to these successful examples. Just note this. While everyone else is chasing the next big shiny thing, these businesses quietly compound wealth in the background. And these businesses share similar formula. There's no recognition, low competition, simple operations, steady demand, and no reliance on a social media or hype cycles. In order to start a business like this, all you have to do is to look around in your town and spot a business with these characteristics, and you're already on the right trajectory to success. So wait, if boring businesses are really so lucrative and proven, why the hell isn't anyone talking about them? Well, that's simple, they're not clickable. Influencers promote get-rich-quick schemes, and there really seems to be no limit to what type of a business course they can sell to us. And the worst part is people are actually buying them. They buy into the idea that all of us deserve to get rich, and get rich quick. That's why we went from listening to boring billionaires like Warren Buffett for free to listening to, in my opinion, paid promoters of gambling. I mean, since when exactly did we start to take business advice from these guys? Well, nobody is going viral for saying, hey guys, here's how I made $3 million cleaning restaurants' grease traps for 10 years. First of all, these people don't have time for any of that Instagram thing. They are busy. Second, it's not sexy enough for people to care. It doesn't sell courses and it doesn't promote instant success overnight. Which one of these two do you think will sell more courses? I made $50,000 in 1 week with a Shopify dropshipping store. Or here is how I built a great business in 15 years. The first hits the dopamine and the second hits your boredom. But here's the thing, when they say $50,000, they mean revenue with zero profits. And the 1 week was actually the Black Friday when they all spend their profits on ads. And I'm not saying there are no exceptions, but that's mostly the reality. Influencers don't sell boring, they sell dreams. But from what I've learned studying hundreds of top performing companies, both private and public, around 50% of the most consistent successful businesses are boring. Look at the S&P 500. You will find a huge portion of companies dealing in packaging, industrial tools, insurance, waste management, HVAC, food distributions, and logistics. None of these are building flying cars. And on this channel, I talk about both fast growth startups and slow, steady exponential companies. But both focus on wonderful long-term exponential growth. Fast growth businesses are surely exciting, but they are also full of risks and burnout and usually end up crashing down. Ironically, the businesses that don't crash are the ones built on trash. Literally, dumpster rentals, waste collection, septic services. They solve real problems, they get paid, and they last. According to the US Census Bureau and years of wealth studies, the majority of business millionaires made their money in exactly these industries. Service businesses, they solve real-world problems, get booked repeatedly and scale with teams. Local trades, every city needs them, and most operate with a little real competition. Maintenance, they keep systems running and people always call when stuff breaks. Logistics. Logistics are essential to keep goods moving in the economy. Equipment rentals. Contractors and even companies rent instead of buying. The people getting rich from these businesses, they're the ones quietly buying your apartment building while you are scrolling your TikTok. And that's coming from a guy who owns an online marketing agency. Why don't people want to do something real, something material? Well, most of my customers do. There's no surprise over my 20 years of experience in marketing. I didn't have a single dropshipping customer. I did have few e-commerce clients, but they come and go. I had hundreds of boring businesses, and even given the average time to switch in a marketing agency is about 3 years, some of them were with me for more than 5 years. So I did a list of these companies for you if you're curious that still do performance marketing with me, and not only their marketing works, but their business grow year every year. Pest controls, abrasives, cleaning machines, car repair, phone repair, selling septics, and the roof cleaning. And again, it's because it's something people need. See, most of them are boring businesses that can withstand the market crash. And a market crash, that happens almost every 5 to 10 years nowadays. In 2000, the dot-com bubble burst. 2008, global financial crisis. 2020, COVID shutdowns. Between 2022 and 2023, tech layoffs, inflation, and crypto implosion. When you think about it, the business influencer recommendations are typically tied to fleeing trends, meaning the demand can disappear as quickly as it appears. And this results in unstable income and constant pressure to find the next big thing. While dropshipping might seem sexy, the stability and profitability of boring business often win in the long run. So let's take a quick look at the most boring businessman on the planet, Warren Buffett. And boring in the context of his businesses, of course. As a person, he's actually very entertaining. There is a reason people admire him. Well, first of all, he's incredibly rich, but he's also humble, and he's doing the kind of business that almost no one wants to do. Insurance, furniture, and candy. It's not the hot topics of Silicon Valley, but that's the whole point. Buffett made billions by choosing what others ignored. here are just few examples. Geico, car insurance. Besides his Berkshire Hathaway holdings, Buffett loves insurance companies like Geico because they are the ultimate boring cash machine. People pay premiums upfront for protection, and the insurance company holds that money, sometimes for years, before paying out claims. Geico alone generates billions in revenue by insuring cars, something people always need. Buffett also owns furniture businesses like Nebraska Furniture Mart. It's a chain selling sofas, tables, and beds, stuff every household needs. It's not high fashion or cutting edge, but it's stable market. People will always need furniture, whether they're moving, upgrading, or starting a family. By keeping costs low and focusing on the value, Nebraska Furniture Mart puts in massive revenue with the steady growth. It's the type of a business you would walk past without a second thought, but not for a Buffett. Then there is a Sea Candies, a company Buffett bought in 1972. It's just a chain selling chocolates and sweets. Hardly a tech revolution, but Buffett loves it because it's a timeless business. People buy candy for holidays, gifts, or just a quick treat year after year. Sugar is one of the 3 allowed addictive substances. I made a video about it. Sugary products have a predictable sales, loyal customers, and high profit margins. See's Candy is not trying to change the world, it's just delivering a consistent product people love. And that consistency had churned out hundreds of millions in profits for Berkshire Hathaway. And some people might say, well, Buffett owns Coca-Cola and he held Apple. Well, that's not boring. But if you really think about it, Coca-Cola is one of the most boring operational businesses in the world. It's not just a marketing soda brand, it's a logistics and distribution empire. Coke is vertically integrated. They control bottling plants, delivering systems, vendor relationships, and shelf space in over 200 countries. You can think about them as competitors to water. Coke is delivering sugary water anywhere on Earth 24/7 with ruthless efficiency. And as for Apple, yes, we can comfortably say it's not a boring business. But Buffett treats Apple like a utility business. He knew everyone needed a phone, and he made a bet that it would be the Apple devices that everyone would own. His bet was spot on. But today, when everyone has one, maybe that is the reason he has been quietly selling Apple stock. So even his not boring investment are still boring in some way. Buffett doesn't care about hype. He cares about companies that compound cash flows and don't break them when things get hard. Buffett has been sharing his playbook for decades. Every year he tells the world exactly how he invests and why, but very few people follow it. It requires patience, discipline, and ability to ignore the hype. He knows that it's extremely hard. Why? Pride and ego. That's why he's not worried about competitors stealing his strategy, and that's why he wins. We'll get to how boring businesses are built in a minute, but first it's important to understand what most people don't realize, and that it's their ego is stopping them from making millions on boring businesses. We all want to build the next Tesla and the next OpenAI, the next Apple, not just to get rich, but also to be admired, respected, and talked about. But that has nothing to do with the logic. That's pure ego whispering, you're special, you're different, you're meant to change the world. If you want to invent something or build something revolutionary, that's all fine. Maybe you have to hear that kind of a motivation in order to do it. But then don't lie to yourself. You just want to make money. I certainly think most people are in it for the money. And once you realize the truth, the same voice that told us as kids we would grow up to be astronauts no longer makes sense. Adulthood hits and suddenly working a stable job is enough to pay the bills. Only then we realize we were fed by the New York Times best-selling biographies and Hollywood movies, a motivational ideology that doesn't work for most of us. And in the shadows of those giant stories they fed us, we ignored the quiet billionaire. What if I told you that our obsession with get-rich-quick businesses isn't just about money or success? It's part of our biology. Let me explain something called peacock paradox. In nature, a male peacock's huge colorful tail is actually a disadvantage. It makes him slower and more vulnerable to predators and burns tons of energy to maintain. But that's exactly the point. Only the strongest and healthiest males can afford to carry that burden and still survive. So the tail becomes a costly signal, a show of strength, status, and genetic quality that attracts females. Now think about the modern entrepreneurs flashing a luxury car, or building the next crypto startup, or launching a fashion brand. You're actually bringing attention to you, which makes you more vulnerable as you are signaling wealth. It's the same thing. We chase business models that looks impressive, not because they are profitable, but because they are status symbols. We want our version of the peacock's tail, even if it's worse business, even if it's riskier, and even if we burn out, because it makes us look like a winner. But here's the difference. In nature, the tail actually signals a good shape. In business, most of the time, the flashiest signals are a cover for terrible business fundamentals. So don't try that hard to be a peacock. Deep down, we know that there is a safer and more reliable path to wealth. Yet time and time again, we gamble on risky and hyped up ventures. Some people don't realize that boring businesses doesn't mean boring life. Think about it this way. Cash flow first, passion later. All you have to do is this. For example, step 1, get rich from renting toilets. Step 2, fund your art studio or YouTube channel or climbing gym from the Boring Businesses stable cash flow. Take Paul Akers. He started FastCap, a company that makes woodworking accessories, edge banding tools, and cabinet trim. Stuff that most people will never even notice. But that boring business grew into a global manufacturing company. And now, Paul travels the world teaching clean business systems, running his company from his iPhone, and doing exactly what he loves. He built the boring first, and now it's unlikely his company will be disrupted. This example shows sometimes we have to avoid falling into a peacock trap. You don't have to play this peacock's game at all. Flip the narrative, become the entrepreneur who's okay with being boring if it means being rich at the end. So now you're probably asking, what are some of these best boring businesses to start? It could be businesses people ignore the most. Here is a list of businesses most people drive past 100 times but never once thought about owning. All you have to do is start in your neighborhood is pick one. Selling or installing HVAC. Higher startup costs but very high lifetime value per customer, and clients come back every 5 to 10 years for upgrades and emergency repairs. Selling or delivering water coolers. It's recurring revenue business, very predictable and scalable if you lock in the clients on the monthly subscriptions. Selling cleaning services or products. Competitive but evergreen. Differentiation comes from reliability, speed, or eco-friendly options, and margins can be great if you systemize the labor. Renting portable toilets, one of the most boring and most profitable business out there. Recurring rentals for events and constructions and festivals, and you have very few competitors. Selling or inspecting fire extinguishers, extremely sticky clients due to legal requirements. Once you are in, you become their go-to every year. Car assistance and roadside help. This is a stress-driven service with high urgency and limited price sensitivity. If you can build trust and show up fast, you're set. Bedding commercial cleaning. It's the underrated gold mines in hospital, hotels, and gyms. It requires equipment, but once you are in, contracts are sticky and high volume. Some boring businesses don't just make money, they are practically immortal, especially the ones that are tied to birth, food, water, trash, or death. Those are the things that people can't live without. So if you are the kind of a person who wants to build something that lasts through recession, pandemic, tech cycles, or even wars, you want to look at these. Dumpster rentals, high margins, low customers loyalty issues. If you own the dumpsters, the real value is in controlling the physical assets, which are the dumpsters alone. Selling or servicing septic tanks. It doesn't matter if economy crashes, people still flush toilets and take out the trash. Water business, a clean water is non-negotiable. That's why plumbing businesses will always be there. Try running an office, gym, or school, or even just your family without it. Death businesses. Funeral services, cremation, and cemetery management are morbid but bulletproof. People die in recession too, and this industry is called steady cash, quite literally. Birth and healthcare business. Hospital, care homes, and clinics are more and more important. As population age, medical waste businesses and suppliers to these places are secretly building empires. And some of these boring businesses can even print money while you sleep, as they say. And I know passive income has become one of the most abused phrases on the internet. Influencers sell the fantasy of making money in your sleep with zero effort, zero skills, and zero risk. And that's not what I'm talking about. Nothing is truly passive. However, some boring businesses are scalable without your constant presence. Here are a few real examples of boring businesses that, if set up right, can print money with a minimal day-to-day involvement. Automated laundromats. Once the machines are in place and the card app-operated system is set up, your job is collecting quarters or Stripe payouts and maintaining the machines. Vending machines. These are the snacks and drinks machines in offices, gyms, or schools. Stock once a week, track inventory digitally, and restock on autopilot. Parking lots and garages. You own or rent a property and then you paint stripes on the ground, set up mobile pay signage, and you are in a business. People pay to actually leave their cars alone. ATM routes. Maybe you know where the tourists are really hiding. Place ATMs in a cash-heavy locations like bars or frequent streets. You collect transaction fees every time someone uses one. Self-storage units. One of the ultimate boring cash cows. Low overhead and no employees needed, and people pay you monthly, often to store stuffs that they will never touch again. And as inflation rises, so do your rates, since the buildings themselves appreciate too. And all of these are real businesses. Some require capital, some upfront work, and some common sense. But once running, they are machines that generate cash flow without you needing to be there every day. Let's zoom out and look at why boring businesses work so well. There are mainly 7 reasons why boring businesses quietly outperform everything else. They solve repeat problems. Toilets clog, floors get dirty, cars break down. These aren't maybe problems, they are 100% happening and repeatedly, and guaranteed problems create guaranteed demand. They serve basic human needs: trash, food, water, hygiene, housing. They are at the core of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These don't disappear during recessions. That's why plumbing, pest control, and cleaning services are recession-proof by default. They are not celebrated by public. Nobody's flexing their grease trap cleaning empire on Instagram. That ego gap creates naturally low competition because most people won't talk about it, therefore touch it. They'll be still here 10 years from now. AI might replace the copywriter, your designer, or even your lawyer, but it's not going to pump your septic tank and clean restaurant hood and pick up heavy trash from construction sites. These businesses are built on hands-on physical work, and that makes them a future-proof. They win locally, not globally. You don't need to go global and compete with an entire world's app or website. You just need to own your zip code and then expand to the next one. Boring thrives in the local trenches. They come with assets that grow in value. Dumpsters, vans, warehouses, pressure washers, and scissor lifts. If you own those tools, the land, or the storage, you're also playing the real estate game. And those assets often appreciate over time, or at least have a great returns. And yes, I know all of these cost money, but we'll get to that later. They naturally compound. The most underestimated power of boring businesses is the compounding element. This is why people think this business is linear instead of exponential. You don't need to go viral, you just need to show up, get paid, and reinvest. 1 storage becomes 2, 2 storages become 4, and suddenly you've got a storage empire. That's the snowball effect. Do the work, reinvest profits in assets, grow the system, and repeat. It's slow at first, but after a few years, it will pick up momentum, size, and stack cash along the way. Now, do you think that you need to be a genius to make millions? No, you don't. Look at Cintas, one of the most boring and most profitable businesses in America. And I will repeat, Cintas is one of the most profitable businesses in the US, and they provide products like uniforms, mats, mops, and other supplies. Cintas started in 1929. And pay attention now, because a lot of you were objecting on my last video that you can start a boring business without capital, and that's not true. Do you think Cintas started with capital and big machinery or trucks on the road? No, they start as a family-run business built on resourcefulness and organic growth. A guy named Doc Farmer collected old and greasy rags from factories, then cleaned them up and sold them back. That was the business, washing used rags. And then he added uniform cleaning, the uniform rental, the floor mats and mops, resting room supplies, fire extinguishers checks, and safety gear. Basically everything a business doesn't want to think about, but absolutely needs. Today, Cinta is worth over $87 billion at the day of recording. They serve over 1 million businesses across North America. So Cinta started with sweat, not capital, and yes, you have to be creative if you don't have the funds, but creativity is a small price to pay. And then they succeeded by being so boring, so reliable, and so essential that no one could compete. So no, you don't need to be a genius, you just need to be a person willing to clean the rags when everyone else is trying to make the next Gucci bag. Sometimes boring businesses are just on the edge of being boring. Now, if you're watching this and thinking maybe I am the one who is chasing a short-lived trend, I've put together a free 5-minute business questionnaire that will help you to figure out whether your idea can really stand the test of time. It's designed to highlight if you are building on timeless principles, so take it if you are ready for reality check. None of us want to gamble our future on a short-lived idea. There's a really thin line between boring and sexy businesses. The line between boring and sexy often depends on the branding or packaging. There are great examples of founders turning a boring business into a sexy business. For example, Dollar Shave Club used a marketing campaign to turn boring razors at the pharmacy, which was dull, overpriced, and forgettable, into a fun way to replace razors with convenience and viral with legendary YouTube ad.
For $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are great.
They turned commodity into a cool subscription lifestyle brand and sold to Unilever for $1 billion. Another great example of boring product turned into a premium experience is a Fiji water. Water is considered a boring business in most cases. In this case of Fiji water, it becomes a Gucci of the bottled water. It was founded in 1996 by entrepreneur David Gilmour. Fiji didn't win because the water itself was radically different. It won because every layer of the business was designed to feel exclusive. Remote, exotic, pure aquifer in Fiji. The story of untouched by a man. So instead of Fiji trying to compete on cost, taste, or minerals, it competed on desire, exclusivity, design, and social proof. And suddenly, 1 cent of a dollar product was selling for $5, and everyone wanted to be seen holding a bottle of Fiji. Water is a boring commodity, but once you brand it, package it, use a different format or user experience that turns something as boring like water into something sexy like Fiji water. For example, a ground coffee, you can turn them into an Nespresso capsules. Take rice or oats and turn them into a pre-mixed jars, or cereal grains into high-protein granola bar. You can take potatoes and turn them into chips or fries. You can take paper and turn it into moleskin notebooks, or upgrade haircuts into barbers. All of these businesses can work even without the fancy packaging, apps, or luxury positioning. Sometimes the smartest move isn't to reinvent the experience, and that's the point of this video. Sometimes you don't need to upgrade the business idea. The boring version already works. Let's assume that you realize the same way Warren Buffett realized boring is the most simple and realistic form of a business. What now? Should I start one? So in case you are thinking about it, I'm going to lay down $100 million blueprint on how you can build one, even if you are starting with nothing. So let's go step by step. So step 1. Every scalable boring business starts with the customer problem and solution. In order to solve something, you have to know how it works. Pick one boring service that people pay for. Pressure washing, pest control, septic services, appliance repair, drive-away sealing, cleaning commercial spaces. Let's say that you picked pressure washing. You really don't need to master it forever. Just learn enough to understand how the value is created. You can work for someone else, you can watch YouTube obsessively, or do a free job for your friend. This is the architect phase, and most people skip it, which is a big mistake. This is where you lay down the trajectory of your business. Once you know the job inside out, you will know how labor, time, and material works in this industry, and then you will be also able to hire, organize, and price everything. It will also allow you to avoid beginner mistakes. Step 2. There are really 3 reasons why someone is looking anyone else but them to pressure wash their trash bin, roof, wall, or walking side. They don't know how to do it, they don't want to do it, and they don't have the equipment to do it. And the best scenario when it's all 3. And this is why you don't need funding and you don't need a brand. You first learn how to do it, then you find the cheapest labor to do it, and then buy equipment to do it faster and better. So what you really need to do to start a pressure washing business is a phone and your own hands. In case you need a van for bigger operations, you can rent it for the day that you need it. So then you get your first customer, you over-deliver, you ask for referrals, and you charge slightly less than the market to get traction, but then raise the price fast. This is where the grind builds your base. You trade hours for dollars, but the goal is not to stay here. The goal is to convert your hard work into systems. Which brings us to the step 3, which is that you have the real advantage over the old school owners. What is that? It's that you are digitally literate. You're watching my video on YouTube, so you have to be. So here's a really simple way how anybody can leap ahead of 90% of competition in a boring businesses. And this is all under condition that you can actually provide good service, which is not easy, but it is what it takes. First, you have to offer your services on a Facebook groups, forums, and common listings. Second, set up a Google My Business plus Facebook and build reviews on the free platforms. Third, use modern software to speed up the process like online bookings or invoicing automation and task management software. Fourth, use basic CRM to send recurring emails with your offer. Fifth, just upload every job that you do on a social media. It can be a photo, it can be just sped up videos with the boring parts removed. That's up to you. Create a simple website with full scope information about your services and use photos and descriptions and transparent pricing. And that's it. You have to realize that some old owners are still using the business cards or phone books and handwritten invoices. You will win by default with basic digital hygiene we just went through. Now step 4. Once you're profitable, stop thinking like a freelancer. This is what I call a stonemason phase in the exponential blueprint. It's the second stage out of 3. The first was the architect phase where you've shaped your trajectory and figure out what is working. Now you are in a phase 2, which is a stonemason phase. You know what you want to build. Now it's time to build it. This stage involves hard work of building values that last. Stonemason build core strategies or products that later fuel the third exponential growth stage. At the stonemason stage, you start to use the cash flow that you're generating to buy the first truck, finance better gear, build a real website, hire part-time help, get commercial liability insurance, build process documents and checklists. But remember, the concept from the book, The Rich Dad and Poor Dad, buy things that provide more cash flow. Buy assets, not liabilities. Want to buy first truck because you will get more done? Great, that's an asset. If you want to buy a car for your personal use, nicer furniture, fancy office space, new MacBook, or a software that you don't need, that's all liability. Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the planet, still works at the desk he made from a door. It's more of a symbol today, but still the message is pretty clear. Now, if the demand for your service is proven and stable, this is when you can take business loan or lease to buy asset for your business. But only when you've earned the demand and you know your numbers. Now, you're not just a worker, you're building an empire. Step 5 is where things starts to move fast and the boring gets really interesting. This is the final exponential stage. At the exponential stage, the trajectory that you've chosen and the hard work that you've put into your brand will multiply. This is where your business hits its inflection point and grows at a pace people, including you, will not understand. Add new crew or locations, buy more equipment, expand your services, take on commercial contracts, start paying for ads like Google or Facebook, do cold outreach to reach estate firms, construction companies, and property management. This will ensure that revenue scales and brand awareness grows, all leading to asset stacking. You're building a cash flow engine that gets harder to disrupt the bigger it gets. And step 6 is all about protecting your exponential growth. This is where most old school owners failed. They've built a good business, but then let it rot. And your job is to keep improving what already works. Stay on top of tech, AI tools, automation, customer portals. Retain the good talent with the structure and rewards. Keep tightening your customer experience and watch aggressive newcomers and build moats before they arrive. Don't make the same mistake of the people you are replacing. You're not just running the boring businesses, you are building a modern empire. That's how you turn a mop or a pressure washer or a pickup truck into a 7-figure asset. Learn, do, systemize, multiply, fortify. And the way I'm presenting it might be exciting, but trust me, the path is boring. You have to embrace it because that's why it works. And to be honest, now might be the best time in decades to start a boring business. Why? Because 50% of the small business owners are over 55 years old. They are retiring. And trust me, I know it, they've come to me for advice on marketing when some competition suddenly starts taking over their customers. They're so used to things working for them that it really hits them unprepared when the Google stops sending them a free organic visitors. They are running on autopilot with a zero digital strategy. So old school owners are a massive opportunity for a new blood. They're so late to technology that even with their monopolistic position, it creates opportunity to take over their business. They're stuck in 1990s marketing. And you don't have to take my word for it, just look around you at one generation above you and how they use phones or browsers. And most young guys can do without being an extremist 2 or 10 times more with technology in the same time frame. Now imagine what happens when you step in with just the basic skills and understanding how most people today use technology. For example, Google reviews. I use them all time to research businesses. Or local SEO. I search all services and products online. Or use mobile web version or CRM. I see maximum 5% businesses have this right. Or booking forms. I rarely call numbers on the websites. Or Facebook ads. I don't use Facebook personally, but most people in the world does. So tell me, what do you think is more likely? You will learn in 2-3 years how the business is done with unlimited tutorials on YouTube and AI and at your fingertips, or the 50-year-old boomer looking to retire to learn modern technology. You don't need to be genius, you just need to be about 10 years younger and use technology regularly. So here's the summary you have to know about boring businesses. You don't need to invent next iPhone or raise millions of funding. You don't need to go viral, build an app, or chase the next trend. You need to solve a real problem repeatedly, reliably, and better than the next guy, and that's it. That's the boring business. This is what they do. They rent toilets, they clean carpets, they fix roofs, and they print cash. And it's not pretty, but it makes money. Quietly, predictably, and at scale. This formula is simple. Learn, do, systemize, multiply, and fortify. That's how you turn pressure washing, pest control, or portable toilets into $1 million empire. While everyone else is chasing attention, you build systems. While they burn out chasing freedom, you buy actual freedom with the cash flow. And while they brag, you reinvest. While they flex, you own the assets. And if you are smart, you will let them laugh. So your next steps are: pick a boring business, start small, outlearn, outwork, and outsystemize, and let the time do the compounding. And if you are okay being underestimated for a few years, you might just be the one who is buying the entire street where your friends are actually laughing. If you want more information on this topic, and if you want to know how you can buy a boring business even with a $0, watch this video next. And don't forget, you can find out for free if your business idea is any good with a business questionnaire that is down in the link description.